In this video, we'll be seeing how to implement GridView in Android, and we'll be seeing how to implement on-click listener for each item, and we'll be implementing the GridView by fetching the data from the internet. We'll be using Volley, and then we'll be parsing the JSON data, and we'll be showing this to the view. So let's start with the implementation. Here you can see that I have created a new Android Studio project. So this is an empty activity. So we have to add two new dependencies to our Gradle scripts. So the first one is Google Volley. So go to this URL. I'll give the link for this article on the description and you can check that out. And you can scroll down. And we have to copy this dependency. So copy this line. And you can go to the Gradle scripts, build.gradle, the second file. And we have to add it inside the dependencies. Then you can click on Sync Now. We also have to add Picasso because we'll be loading the images from a URL. So for that, you can go to this Picasso GitHub page. I'll give the link for this also on the description. And we have to copy this line. So this is the dependency for Picasso. Copy this line and you can paste it in the dependencies. Then you can click on Sync Now. Okay, so we have added Picasso and Google Volley to our project. Now you can go to RES layout and inside that you can open the activity main XML file. And we have to change this parent layout to relative layout. We can give an ID for the parent layout. Now we have to use a grid view. So remove this text view and add a grid view. We can give an ID for the grid view. We can also set the number of columns that is needed for the grid view. Let's set it to 3. Okay, now our grid view is ready. Now we have to create a list item. So go to the layout and click on the right, go to new and click on resource files, layout resource files. Now we can name this file like grid view items. Go to the split mode. Here you can change the parent layout to relative layout. Let's give an ID for the layout. Now we have to create an image view and a text view. Let's give an ID for the image view. We can give a demo image for now. So src, and we can use some image that is already inside the app. So let's use IC launcher background. Okay, and we can also give a padding for the image. Now we can create the text view. Give an ID for the text view. We can set a demo text. And we can give a padding also. Now we have to make it align after the image view. So for that, layout below. And we have to give the ID of the image view. And we have to align it to center. So layout center horizontal and set it to true. Okay, now we can also give a margin on the top. Margin top, let's give a margin of 10 dp. Okay, now that's all with the layout part. Okay, now you can go to the activity main Java part. Now here we have to create an adapter for the grid view. So for that we have to create list data first. So create a class, Java class, and name it list data. Inside this class we'll be creating two strings, one for the image and one for the name. We have to create a constructor and we have to accept the image and the name. Now we have to set the image and the name to the local variable. So this dot name equal to name, just like that. This dot image equal to image. Now we have to create an getter and a setter for the name and the image. We'll be using the getter only. So let's create the getter. Get name. You can see the suggestion. So simply type get and you will get the suggestion. Okay. And let's create one for the image. Okay. So that's all. Now we are done with this part. So we have to create an adapter now. So create a new class, Java class. And this one you can name it like GridView adapter. And we have to extend base adapter. So extends base adapter. Okay, now you can see an error here. So we have to implement few functions. So let's click here and type alt enter, implement methods. Okay, and you can see the methods that we need to implement and click OK. Okay, so now we are having get count, get item ID, and get view. Before going to the methods, we have to create a constructor. So get view adapter, and inside that we'll be receiving the context and also a array list that will be passing from the main activity. Now the array list is of the type list data that we just created, and the list data will contain image and the name. Now we have to create a local variable also. So array list data, and let's name the variable like list data itself. And after that we have to create a context, and inside the adapter we have to set the data. Okay, now that's all. Now we can go to the get view method, and here we have to inflate the view, and for that we can create variable for layout inflator. Layout inflator dot from, and here we have to pass the view group dot get context, give a semicolon, and on the next line we have to create a view, create an object view. Let's name it root equal to layout inflator, the object, dot, we have to inflate a view. So inflate r dot layout dot, and we have to pass the layout that we just created, that is the grid view items, comma, we can pass the view group, then you can pass a false. Okay, now you can see a warning here. So simply click here and type alt enter, and simply click enter here, and this will add this line before this. Okay, that's all. Then after that we have to create an object for the relative layout, image view, and the text view. So in order to get the view by the ID, we have to use root dot find view by ID, r dot ID dot, then we have to give the ID of the layout. So for that you can go to the layout and you can see the ID is GridView items. Okay, so you have to make sure that you are using the correct ID, otherwise you will get an error. Okay, then let's make an object for the image view. And one for the text view. Now we can set a on click listener for the relative layout. So when we click on the item, we can do some toast or we can do some activity when we click on the item. Okay, now we have set the on click listener, and inside that we can set a toast message. And you can see that the position is this one. Okay, int I. You can get the position here. Okay, so let's change this I to some different name, so it will be easy for us to identify. Okay, okay, now we can set the image view and the text view. So in order to set the text view dot set text, then we have to access the array list. So our array list variable name is list data. Okay, so list data dot get, and inside that we have to pass the position, and after that dot get name. That's all. Just like that we can load the image also. But in order to load the image from a URL, you have to use Picasso. So for that, Picasso dot get dot load, inside that we have to pass the image URL. So in order to get the image URL, list data dot get, pass the position inside, dot get image. So this will get the image URL. Okay, after that you have to call the into, then we have to pass the image view. Okay, that's all. Now this will load the image into the image view. Now scroll to the top, and here inside the get count, we have to pass the count. So array list, that is the list data dot to array dot length. So we are passing the length here. Okay, now that's all. So our adapter is done. Now we can move to the activity main, and let's see our API URL. And here you can see this is our API URL, and you can see that we are having a JSON array, and inside that we are having two JSON objects. Okay, and inside that we are having the name and the image. Okay, so this is the API that we are going to use. So let's copy the API URL, and we have to create a string to store the URL. So this URL simply returns a JSON response, and this is a demo URL. So I just created it for a previous video, and we are using it for this video also. Now we have to fetch the content which is inside this URL, and then we have to parse the JSON data. Then we'll be passing this data to the adapter, and we'll be setting the view. So for that we have to create a function to fetch the data. Public void fetch data. Now inside this we'll be making a volley request. So for that, request queue create an object request queue equal to volley dot new request queue. Inside that, pass the get application context. Okay. String request, create an object equal to new string request, and inside that we have to pass request dot method dot, we have to specify the method, so we are going to simply use a get method. So request dot method dot get, give a comma, then we have to give the URL. So in our case the URL is API URL. So we have declared this variable on the top, give a comma, new response listener. So we have to set a response listener. Okay, so you can see the response listener. Then after this, we have to come to here in this line, give a comma, hit an enter. Okay, and here new, we have to create a error response also. So response dot error listener. So we have also set the error listener. Okay, you can give a semicolon here. And yes, then after this semicolon, we can call request queue dot add. Then we can pass the string request, give a semicolon. So that's all. Now this is a simple get request in Volley. So inside the on response, we will get our string, that is the JSON response. So let's parse the JSON response inside the on response function. And inside the on error response, you can simply type error dot print stack trace. So you can debug the errors properly. And go to the on response. We have to create a function first. So go to the top here and let's create a function, public void parse JSON. And we have to pass a string. So string, name it something like response itself. Okay, so we'll be passing this response string to this function. Okay, now we are receiving a JSON array, so we have to capture the JSON array. For that JSON array, create an object equal to new JSON array. Inside that we have to pass the response. You can see this in red, so we have to warp this inside a try catch. Click here and type alt enter and surround with try catch. Okay, then after this line here, come to here, and now we have to loop through the JSON array. So for that, create a for loop for int I equal to 0, then I less than JSON array dot length. Okay, and I plus plus. And inside this, we have to fetch each JSON object. So JSON object, create an object equal to JSON array dot get JSON object. Inside that we have to pass the index. So the index is I. Okay, now we are getting each JSON object. Then we can fetch the name and the image URL. So string name equal to object dot get string. And this one we have to specify the key name. So the key name that we have used here, I'll show the API once more. So here you can see the key name is name and the next one is img. Okay, so you have to use this same name. Okay, so the name is name itself, and after that we have to create a string for the image also. So let's duplicate this line, Control T, and change the name to img, or you can use image image, and the key name for the image is img. Okay, so we are getting the name and the image URL. Now we have to set this to the adapter. So for that we have to create an object for the adapter. So go to the top, array list of list data, create an object. Then inside the onCreate we have to initialize it. List data equal to new array list. Okay, then come here. Then we have to add the data to the array list. So list data dot add. So here we have to pass a new list data, and inside that we have to pass the name and the image, and you have to pass it in the exact order. So if you go to this list data class, you can see that we are receiving the name first, then the image. So you have to give the data in the exact order. So go back to the main activity.java. Okay, then after this we have to set the adapter to the grid view. So for that you can go to the top and create an object for the grid view. Grid view, and let's initialize the grid view. Come to the onCreate, grid view equal to find view by id, r.id dot, then give the id of the grid view. So this is the id of the grid view. You have to make sure the id is exactly matching. So if you go to the activity main.xml, you can see the id here. Okay, so hope you understand that part. Then you have to come here after the for loop, come to this line, and we have to create an object for the adapter. So grid view adapter equal to new grid view adapter, pass the get application context, comma, and then we have to pass the list data, give a semicolon. Then we can set the adapter to the grid view. So grid view dot set adapter, then give the adapter name, that is the variable that we just created. Okay, now that's all. Go to the onCreate function, and we have to call the fetch data function. That's all. Now our implementation is almost complete. Go to the manifest, and we have to add the permission for internet. Now if you are using an HTTP URL instead of an HTTPS URL, you can also add this line, clear text traffic, and set it to true. That's all. Okay, now the implementation is almost complete. Let's go through all the code once more. Okay, yes, everything is complete. So let's try running this app. Now you can see that the app has opened, and you can see the grid view is not getting set. And if you go to the code, you can see that we are not calling the parse JSON function. So go to the fetch data inside the on response. We have to call the function. So call the function parse JSON. Then we have to pass the response string. Okay, now that's all. Let's try running it once more. So you can see the app just crashed. So let's go to the logcat and scroll to the top, and we can see attempt to invoke virtual method, and I think it's passing a null. So let's go to the adapter and to the get view function, and here you can see that we are returning a null value. So remove this null value and pass the root. So this was the error. So you have to change this return null to return root. Okay. So we are passing this view. Okay. So now let's run it once more. And now you can see that the grid view has loaded. The image has loaded and you can see the on click listener is also working. Okay. So that's all. Now, if you want to download the full source code of this video, you can come to this URL. I'll give the link for that in the description. So go to this URL and you can download it from here. Hope you understand how to implement GridView in Android. If you have any doubts, you can leave a comment and I will respond to them. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for more such videos.